tell the world we are Liverpool, champions of England.
We've conquered all of Europe. We're never gonna stop. From Palestine to Turkey, we've won the fucking lot. Got Paisley and the Shankly, the fields of Anfield gold. We are unsupported, and we come from Liverpool.
G'day everybody, welcome to the training ground, welcome to the Red Sea podcast, welcome to the Red Sea Down Under. It's a preview show for Manchester United, Liverpool versus Man United, away from home. We're at Old Trafford for this one. As always, it's going to be myself and Peter, the coach, Kafinas. Haven't called you by that name in a while. Not because you're not a coach, you are a professional coach, but just because haven't felt the need to give you a nickname.
I've got to earn it now. We've got to earn it. Hopefully after
we've been
today
earning it. Yeah, we've been earning it on this show. Well, the thing that's exciting about this is it's not only a preview of the Manchester United game that's to come, but it's a training ground session. So all of you guys who want to know what we think about how Manchester United are going to line up, how they're going to score goals, what's the best way for Liverpool to score goals, what we think the Liverpool lineup might be. This is your place to do it. Now, if you've just tuned in right here at the start, make sure you do subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, give it a thumbs up so it pushes it up the algorithm there. And please continue to support these shows that we do. We put a lot of hard effort into them. And, we just want you guys to get the most information possible before the game so that you can possibly enjoy it more. But there's nothing more enjoyable than a Liverpool win. The thing that we're going to enjoy, Pete, is beating this Manchester United team, and they're a bunch of scruffs. They are random. They are eclectic. And there's a phenomenon I'm going to talk about later on about the way in which they constantly go behind and they claw their way back into games. That's kind of their activation point. That's what activates them. But I want to ask you, what do we know about Manchester United going into this game, apart from the fact that they are managed by Gollum from Lord of the Rings, and they basically are a bunch of eclectic weirdos who manage to score goals from nowhere?
Well, firstly, I hope more like people tune into the show before the match, not after, like what happened with Atletico. We saw the numbers completely went through the roof after our image was like, look what we picked it.
Yeah,
correct.
it's because basically no one watched the show, and then we posted stuff from the show saying, look what's going to happen, and it actually happened, and then people were like, oh yeah. So they watched it. It got a 200% increase in views, as little as
turns out they are pretty good.
Not a bad show indeed.
No, but look, what we know. Look, we know that the standard shape is a 4-2-3-1 is kind of the way they set up. They defend in a 4-4-2, and I'll explain a bit more later on as what they do with this 4-4-2. In attack, I actually find this quite interesting. In attack, they kind of morph into like a 3-3-4, which favours Liverpool Football Club in this sort of kind of match, the way they do it. But to be fair, I actually think it's a cool, innovative idea, the way they do it. And it's just, if it was a good coach that did it, I think it would be more effective. But look, again, they look for their through balls. They're kind of a counter-attacking team. They shoot from almost any angle possible if they can get a shot off. It's a bit more chaotic and random, as you said a bit earlier, rather than a structured kind of set play the way we do things, so to speak.
Well, you can see there on the screen there, that's that 4-2-3-1 you're talking about. But also, like you said, you did mention that whole idea of the way that they do scream forward. And there's those, you can see here, there's Mason Greenwood, Bruno Fernandes, Ronaldo, and Sancho. And in and amongst all of that, you've got Paul Pogba, who likes to go forward a lot. So it's not only attacking in a 4. I mean, that it's the 4-2-4 that you were kind of talking about, or 4-4-2, whichever way you want to put it. Fernandes does go up and join the attack. But you've also got Pogba that's he's not shy to go forward. It's when they choose to do that is mainly the question. But yeah, that's basically what we expect from them. 4-2-3-1 turning into a 4-4-2. You even said augmented. They can even go something like you said, like a 3 at the back of sorts. I guess that kind of brings us into style of play. But you do have a screenshot, Pete, that you want us to have a look at that might help explain this a little bit more. You did mention that 3-3-4. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, so if you show us the screenshot, you can kind of see up there. So we have Sancho all the way wide left, Bruno Fernandes, Ronaldo, and the far side is, I think it's I can't even see from this screenshot, to be fair, but my screen's not full screen. But you can see the shape there with a 4 across the front, a midfielder joining the 4, and then the rest of the rest defense. And this after here just becomes a bit more random. But what they try and do is they try to get the ball wide for a cross in early, or they try and build through some interplay between Ronaldo, Fernandes, and then a third runner from either left or right.
There's something that we noticed last season, by the way, with regards to style of play, especially if they're going to do this wide. I mean, again, it's just kind of like football basics 101 with Ollie, especially the game against us. They weren't too bad, I don't think, against us last season in both games. I mean, we do come away with, we end up, we beat them once and we draw once. Is that right?
Yeah.
But Luke Shaw overlapping on Trent's side was something, especially in this photo here, you can see, Sancho on the left there. That is something I am worried about. They do love their overlapping fullbacks. Wan-Bissaka also does it on the other side, loves a good little, for his namesake, his teammate, does a little Ronaldo chop here and there. He's not as coordinated as Trent, but, they do like that idea. Well, having said that, we've got this style of play, Pete. It's a mixture of counterattacks. It's a mixture of trying to get your fullbacks to bomb on. But then we get to this idea of them trying to score goals. And it's crazy. We looked through using our subscriptions and our technology and things that we're allowed to watch. We can't show you the guys. You can't show you the videos. But from all of our resources that we had, we saw an eclectic collection of shots. Thanks, Kayed, for that. Eclectic collection of shots from outside the box, crossing in for Ronaldo to score headers. Tell us, main threats from Ollie's men.
Well, if you don't mind, if we can get my board up and I can kind of show you, we can kind of explain that 3-3-4 movement that we showed just in that picture there. And then kind of what I've done in terms of how we think to deal with that, and then go on to the main threats from there. So what we can see here is the standard shape, predicted lineup, maybe. Do we change it? Potentially, but just for now, for argument's sake. So we go through their attacking movement and how they do things. Sorry, excuse me. I'll just get this sorted. Now, the way they'll start to move, this is how they kind of move into their 3-3-4. As you can see, this is now, we have Maguire, Lindelof, and Fred as the 3 protecting. Pogba is that kind of that roamer in the middle to hold the midfield centrally, with Bissaka and Shaw becoming the other 3, becoming the width. And we see Fernandes become into like a front 2 with Ronaldo, Greenwood, Rashford. Well, I put them both there anyway. They come in a bit more narrow. And they come in narrow because you said earlier, George, about their width. Mm-hmm. Well, that creates a space for Shaw and Bissaka to get on and try to get that overlap on. Now, what my next, as our players are moving, this is what I've done now in terms of how can we stop from happening. So we kind of have our 2 centre-backs will come in a bit more narrow. Obviously, Trent and Robbo have to track. But Fabinho is key here. He doesn't have to go all the way in the back and try to find a play. But what Fabinho needs to do is stand in between lines, because Milner and Henderson have to get into these 2 pockets, which I'm sure you're going to talk about later on, in terms of, because that's been our danger space for such a long time, those 2 little pockets. And then with our front 3, they're not going to stand there. Don't worry, they're going to move in a second. What I will do personally, if the ball, let's say, is moving to their left, this is what I do. I'd get Firmino, the one that comes into the ball side where it's going. So what that means is, by Firmino doing that, because that's the ball area there that we've highlighted, by Firmino doing that there, it allows Salah to just creep in between this space there or in this space there, because if they're going to just defend with the 3, I mean, Salah v. Fred and Maguire, we saw Fred get absolutely destroyed against Everton in a counter-attack, and we've seen Maguire run, which is hilarious. So we to get in between here or here, if we can try and pinch the ball in these sort of areas, and not just that, George. Let's say it is Firmino who picks up the ball. Let's say whoever it is picks up the ball there. The other dangerous one from here is actually going back into this area for Mane potentially to come in across and try and get that in between the spaces there. So I've got Mane all the way over here because I just think, for me personally, Mane is unbelievable at making that dart run across. But then again, if it goes back to their side, Mane's still close enough to track Bissaka. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I like about this as well is, as we say g'day to Jericho and Kayed, the fridge Maguire. I by the way, it's a good point that he brings up with him being a fridge. I think one of the things we have to do is just get Salah on the ball, same way that we were saying. I mean, it's, Thiago's father, Il Capitan, morning. The same way. Look, it sounds like again coaching 101, but what, get Salah on the ball so he can beat 5 players and do something. Well, it doesn't happen that often. And with the Atletico game, it only happened the one time, and we ended up scoring from it, whether it was a deflection or whatever. But I tell you what, if you want to stand up a player right now in this current form with his fitness and everything, Harry Maguire versus Mohamed Salah is a great. I mean, let's hope. I don't think this is what United want to do. By the way, what you're saying. Let's hope they do it, because it would be great. I don't think they will. I think Ollie would be quite bold to do something like this to try and attack Liverpool and score. I think he will play a little bit more conservative. But if he does this, Mo Salah should be having a one-on-one feast with Maguire. And again, that's that thing that I was saying against Atletico. We've got to get him one-on-one with someone, and we have to support him. If he loses the ball, like against Watford, it has to be Keita, whoever it is, Firmino especially, picking up the pieces and then telling him, go again. Go again, Salah. Just try 2 or 3 times, because Maguire will bring him down. Sorry?
So you're 100% spot on. Just keep running at him, because Lindelof doesn't have the smarts as Varane. And Varane, by the looks of things, is not playing. So we have Varane who is going to be Lindelof and Maguire. We saw them this morning concede 2 goals, which one was an easy cutback, another one was a set piece. So that's another ways we can affect them. But in terms of main threats, I think that's their style of play. I mean, we've got to highlight the fact of Bruno Fernandes. I mean, I don't like the guy at all. I think diving a little rat, but we have to bring up his threats. And I think you're going to, there you go, perfectly, right on cue. You're going to talk about his movement and his involvement. And then we also have a screenshot of what he's so good at. If you wanted to just take it from here, George.
Yeah, well, the main thing that that I wanted to talk about with main threats from Ollie's men, first of all, we're talking about that threat that they have from wide, but it's also the title of the show is Stopping Ronaldo. So if they've got that threat from wide, we do know it's a get out of jail free card. Pop it in the box and hope Ronaldo scores from a header. Now, I don't want to burst everyone's bubble here and knock on wood. You can hear that loud knock on this wooden table that's in front of me.
I heard it.
You hear that? Hey, look, it could bite me in the ass. Look, Ronaldo's dangerous, but if you're going to have a plan to deal with him, you do want Virgil van Dijk and or Joel Matip. Now, does Matip play the 3rd game in a week for, if he's been doing this week in, week out, essentially for Liverpool? I'm not sure. I don't know who we see. I don't know if it's the right match for Kanate. I personally would love to see Joe Gomez perhaps play a game. I think Matip has, maybe slipped a little bit in his concentration. That could be down to fatigue. But this idea of containing Ronaldo, Virgil van Dijk should be able to do the job for us. It's actually the players on his left and right that scare me more. It's Marcus Rashford, who is back in form, 2 goals since his return, one against Atalanta and one against, Leicester. Yep. But it's also Greenwood. And this is I'm going to bring up this little banner here. It's long-range threat from these guys. Rashford has scored curlers in his career. He scored those Ronaldo-style laces shots, dipping shots. Bruno Fernandes scores from long range for fun. And Mason Greenwood, you saw him do it again. He will take 2 or 3 long-range shots. Each of them will take 2 or 3 each. Now, we also saw from stats, I don't know if I'm quick enough to get this stat up on the screen, by the way, but It's actually Manchester United's expected goals for are 16, and they've scored 20. I think I'm right in saying 20, or is it? No, their expected goals for is 12, and they've scored 16. So They shouldn't have scored roughly a quarter of their goals.
And they take 17 shots per game on average. 17
shots per game on average. That means there's a lot of fluff going on there. So if Liverpool can contain the long-range threat, we already get rid of a lot of the threat that Manchester United pose. But this is the one thing that I don't like about... I've just mentioned how good those players are from range. If I'm to show you just this little movement here, we bring this up here. This is actually Bruno Fernandes. And you know what? I might even have the pen, Pete. I might even have the power of the pen very quickly, because we do want to get onto how Liverpool score against them. But it's just this little idea here. Fernandes is there, and he's actually done a nice little pass there behind these 2 players. And this is that side that we're talking about that we get punished on a lot. So what happens here is Bruno Fernandes actually gets that ball across. And it's Marcus Rashford who actually gets on the edge of it. Where is Rashford there? Rashford is here. And this is the spot that we hate, Pete, because I tell you who scored from here against us. I mean, you're going to tell me more, but this was the ball from Bruno Fernandes was there in behind the defense, and Rashford's here. Foden scored from there. Griezmann scored from there.
Yeah, even City
Rashford
last year, a
scored.
couple goals from there. Yeah.
Foden loves scoring from there against us. And this is the other thing, by the way, on the other side of the pitch, with his right foot, by the way. So Alisson's actually very good at stopping the shot, the curler. Rashford's missed those chances against us in the past. What he's not good at is he's the left-footed strike from there. Rashford doesn't like using his left. He always goes around to his right. And this is why I'm scared of Greenwood. If this same thing happens in this vulnerable part of the field here, this area, Greenwood on his right foot is very good, Pete. So much so, for those of you who play FIFA, Rashford has 5-star weak foot. 5-star weak foot. Where do they get these stats from, Pete? It must be real. Anyway, Rashford will do a right foot around there. What we've also seen, Pete, again, in the Atalanta game, Cristiano Ronaldo usually likes to peel out left. But you know what he loves doing? Getting the ball here, attacking there, and just taking a shot low. And that's been Alisson's only little weakness, only blemish this season, has been Laces-style low shots from across the goal in this area. And the reason why we're conceding those chances, I'll leave that one to you, Pete. It's probably an issue in midfield, but it's our defenders being forced to clean up the mess of the midfield by and large. And it's these strikers getting the ball in that dangerous area and Alisson having to deal with them one-on-one.
Yeah, I mean, they get into these positions because, again, you touched on Bruno in perfect timing, because if you get up the screenshot, George, that says Bruno on top, and I'll go through the tactics board a bit so just people get a picture of what I'm trying to paint. So those positions that he's in here, he's in maybe 15, 20 times a match. And the way he gets into these positions, if we move to my board very quickly.
Yeah.
Is because this is his starting position, right? It is there. We're just behind Firmino in a 4-2-3-1 shape. But what happens here is that he has the license to kind of roam, to go into this little pocket here. If he wants to, he can go into there. So what he does is he gets nice and close to Ronaldo. But people think now it's a 4-4-2. Not really, because what he loves to do more than anything now is that he will start here and try and occupy one of the centre backs to potentially create, a bit of space. If let's say Pogba's on the ball, here on the ball, it's like, okay, so let's occupy one of the centre backs and try and create space for Ronaldo. Which we know Ronaldo is a goal scoring machine, as much as I really fucking dislike the bloke. But in terms of making these little runs into the box and anywhere near the box, we know he's absolutely exceptional at. But not only does Fernandes make this sort of run to go there, but what he does is he does it to get in between him and our centre backs. And what he does from here, he'll start here. Pogba can peel off as it does, and Greenwood will come out wide as their movement will normally happen. Let's say it's Fred on the ball, who picks it up nice and close here. Henderson closes him down, and then bang, that happens. Fernandes attacks the pocket that he created originally that he was in. So he moves away to come back into the space, and it will pick it up. And then from here, it's game on, because Pogba we've seen make numerous amount of third man runs. He plays it to him. He maybe turn, receive. Van Dijk's too slow to come out and close it down. Bang, it's into Ronaldo. So it's dealing with Fernandez's kind of movement in between the lines that has to be done exceptionally from us. And I think, I think we can do it. I think we've got more than enough to do it. I just think that this guy here at the moment, he's in some decent form, but what he does, he creates a lot of space for Ronaldo. And we know what Ronaldo does. He does nothing all game. He'll ghost in between. And the next thing you know, he's here. And it's a free open cutback. And God knows how it got there. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's the one last example of this pocket happening when we're talking about that thing from before, by the way, is actually against Everton. This is Martial. And, what happens here is who is actually on the ball there? Is that Fernandes?
Yes.
Who is on the ball there? That could be Fernandes here on the ball here. But the ball comes in. Guess what? The space that is in between the centre back and the fullback, they've tried to be compact here and try and mark all the space to trying to nullify what you're saying. Let's nullify the threat of Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes. But this is Martial comes in, he ends up slotting it far. or somewhere in the goal. And that's the type of goal that we love to concede right now in this moment of time. So look, the threats from United have got a lot of threats, and the very quickly before we move on to how do we score against them, how do Manchester United concede chances, I just want to go through my very, very quick, because I always watch every single year. You ask me, who do you watch football? Like, what team do you watch? I'll say Liverpool. Who's your second team? Since I started supporting Liverpool, 8 years old, 9 years old, the team that I always watch, Manchester United. I was obsessed because I hate them so much, and I wanted to know why. And I've watched every single one of their games this season, last season. You get quite a good understanding of how they play, but there's this idea that they don't switch on until they've conceded two. How many times do we see this United side go down 2-0 and then somehow get back to 3-2? We saw it against Atalanta. We've seen it early on in the season. Yeah, it's probably referees, but maybe we give them a little bit of credit. And the thing is, I'm going to simultaneously belittle Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and then maybe, I don't know, not give him credit, but then like it's almost like giving him like a cheat code. It's kind of like, bro, this is what's happening. What he does is he tries to start the game as a football manager. He tries to literally say, these are our tactics. This is what we're doing. This is our structure. And it's shite. And he concedes 2 goals. And you know what he says then? He goes, fuck it, throw the playbook out. Let's all attack in the exact 3-4-3 that you were saying. That idea of, Fred dropping in between the centre backs, your 2 fullbacks push up really, really high. You've got 4 strikers, you've got your 2 wing backs, and then they score 3 goals from there. And they're actually borderline controlling the game from there. It's almost like Manchester United need to be down 2-0 to even think properly about football. And that comes down to a lack of coaching, and it comes to individualism. It just comes to the players taking it upon themselves and not listening to the manager. Now, I don't know how that helps us, but it basically, I don't know if Liverpool go 2-0 up, we need to be careful. Do Liverpool don't give Manchester United the chance to maybe get into a point where they're being instinctive? We need them to think and go according to Ollie's plan, because Ollie's plan is kind of shite. So anyway, that was my 2 cents on that. And I just want to go to now, how can we score? Because this is the exciting shit. This is where we start. I mean, every single week we seem to try and find ways that we can score against our opposition. And it's really cool for us that we see Liverpool. I think we've been watching them enough and studying the other teams enough that by and large, Liverpool like to do similar sorts of things. So we want to try and do the same thing here for you today, Pete. What's the main way in which we either can score or maybe even see an instance of United conceding?
So what we've seen through, actually just watching games in general, plus doing our own kind of research before we started, is they're actually, surprisingly, they're very weak in set pieces. And I know that's something that we can't bring up on a board or talk about, that way. But the truth is they're actually quite poor on set pieces. They conceded this morning on a set piece. They conceded against Leicester on a set piece. They conceded against Aston Villa on a set piece in the last minute of the match. So they've actually conceded a few from not so much free kicks, but corners. So for us, that's trouble if Robertson's taking the corners. but
we mentioned it. We had a laugh about it. It's like Robbo's some of his best crosses are when he bombs it over the top and it ends up at Salah's feet or Trent Alexander-Arnold's feet. It's a great way to switch the play and make everything move across quicker.
So without going into too much fancy pants kind of like graphics and stuff like that, one way we can definitely score against them is through set pieces. They're quite poor at set pieces. We've been quite good at set pieces, because it's not just about Van Dijk, Matip. As we said last week, George, Firmino is great in the air. Mane is great. And
he loves a goal against one of these top 6 with a header or something weird.
Yeah. Like, Hendo is actually quite strong in the air. Fabinho is good in the air. So we've definitely got enough quality in the air. And I think, if we talk about one way how we can score against them, then 100% at set pieces, that's definitely something that we need to be on point. And again, Trent, best deliverer of the ball in the world right now, no problem. I think we just got to make sure the movement and maybe the set piece plan has to be spot on, because they're quite poor in the midfield in terms of in defending in the box. It's almost like they're very lethargic in defending inside their own box, which we've got a screenshot coming up where there's going to be somebody standing on his own inside the 18-yard box.
Well, this is the goal that Atalanta score. It's a cutback, and what we saw a lot. So we actually watched the complete game against Wolverhampton. The reason why we watched that game was that's the most chances Manchester United have conceded outside of the Leicester game. They conceded 22 chances against Leicester. The second time they've conceded that many chances was 15. It's close, but that was against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Wolves had expected goals of like 1.8 to maybe 2. And Manchester United's expected goals was, I think, pretty much 0.7, so around 1. Don't quote me on that one. I just know Wolves is 1. The reason we watched that game was we wanted to see how United were conceding so many chances. A lot of them were on the counter. And this is the thing. Ole performs well against the top 6 because he's not trying to organize a victory. It's just basically scatterguns. Let the players do the work. I swear, if Ole just let the players do their own thing, maybe they would perform better. But I think he's literally standing in their way. But yeah, in that instance, there is that threat of the counterattack. I don't know if Liverpool have that against Manchester United. But another thing that we saw in the Wolves game was this idea. It's the overlapping run. And this is actually, if I'm not mistaken, if I bring out the pen again, if I'm not mistaken, this player here who's on the ball, I think that's their fullback. I'm pretty sure he does a looping run around here. There's something I want to see now. And you mentioned it in last week's game. We actually glossed over it. We didn't have time to put it in that 2-minute video, only because we didn't score from it. But you guys noticed we played with Naby Keita there. He was really cool for a little bit, and then he got defensively weird. But what I loved about Jordan Henderson is something that you brought up, Pete, which is the run that he just kept making around. He just kept doing this around Trent and just offering a little bit. And he actually crosses, and I think is it Jota that scores off a Henderson cross earlier in the season? Is that right? Doesn't he? Yeah. I think he assists. I think he assists Jota. So that space there, the overlap, if they're going to park a little bit, I like that. And so as you can see as well, there's this player absolutely wide open. The thing is, he actually doesn't play it this way. He actually plays it across goal, and Atalanta score that way.
And look at the edge of the box. Look at edge of the box.
And the edge of the box as well. Jeez. So this is the idea. Look, it sounds like Arsene Wenger, 101, but try and figure out a way to get to the byline. Now, this is the thing. Mo Salah here doesn't get to the byline, doesn't cross it that often. If that is Mo Salah, he's probably coming here, then here, then here, and then scoring there, which is great. But the way that Man United usually concede chances, we want him to do that, by the way, because we want him to either get brought down by Boxhead, Fridgehead, or we want him to score a fantastic goal. Maybe it's going to be 4 weeks in a row. He's literally done it 3 games in a row. He's mesmerized. So he's going to have that chance. And I said this last week, if we want him to have that chance, we need to back him up. He needs to be dribbling at pace with someone supporting him. Sorry, Pete.
So I said, Jamie Vardy scores the exact same kind of goal here, but Jamie Vardy actually, so the Atalanta player there on the 6-yard line who gets this goal here, but what Jamie Vardy actually scores the goal where the guy on the edge of the box is against United the other week. So,
and it comes from left. It comes from this left side, and it comes back, and Vardy just swings at it. Something we don't do, but that's Jota who does that. Firmino doesn't, but Jota does that. So if Jota does start, that'd be a great position for him to stand in.
But it's also the fact that because they're defensively, they're not very mobile. Because if you have a look, it's Fred from the midfield who does a lot of defending. Then it's Maguire who's built like a fridge. Lindelof is okay, but he's actually mistake prone in terms of fouls, diving in, that kind of stuff. We know Bissaka is erratic. He can either be unbelievable or absolutely terrible. And Luke Shaw is a potato with legs. So if our movement inside the box in these sort of situations, where it doesn't have to be from a wide cross to come in, but if it's even the interchange play on the edge of the box, where we've seen that left side triangle work so successfully during some of the games, if our interchange and movement is spot on, their defenders aren't good enough to keep up with us, especially between Robertson, Mane, and let's say maybe a Curtis Jones. Does he come back? Who knows? There's a Milner again, potentially. But either way, if the movement is good, they don't have enough to deal with that.
So yeah, like you said, it's 2 games in a row where this is actually the first Atalanta game, but then there is that example there. So there's several games. So there's Wolves doing it to no avail, hitting the bar and whatnot. Then we've got Leicester who actually go from here down, and it's Jamie Vardy from there who actually, I think, some weird shot that goes top corner, something like that. And then obviously we're seeing this goal here from Atalanta where there is that example. So that's something that maybe we can try and do. And by the way, that's why we always want Tsimikas, by the way, but this is probably one of the weeks. We should always play Robbo, obviously, but this is one of the weeks where it's no question. I think it has to be Andy Robertson. Watch him start Gostas, by the way. Anyway, Andy Robertson's better at getting to the byline. He's just got the power in his legs. He can always track back. So yeah, I would fully expect to see him. I would love to see, Trent doing early crosses from this area. I want to see Robbo getting to there, but I think something along the lines of an overlapping run, even Hendo around this side. If James Milner starts, by the way, you don't like this from me, Pete, but I actually liked James Milner's performance. You mentioned he got rid of the ball several times against Atletico. I don't think any less than anybody else. I think he lost the ball 10 times in the first half, and it stayed that way. He does get brought off, I think, later on, which probably helps that stat. But look, I don't want James Milner to be starting for us until the end of time. But I just love the goal that we score against Watford. The second goal, very important. Was it actually the second? It could have even been the first. It's just James Milner around here. It's that he's got that winger's instinct of going around the winger, even though he's a central midfielder. And, I think Henderson doing it on the right-hand side and Milner doing it on the left-hand side won't be the worst thing. I don't think Naby Keita does it enough for me. If he starts, that'd be great. But I also think Oxlade-Chamberlain, if he comes on, can also do that job. So
you've been saying that for 3 years.
Saying it for 3 years. Yeah, if he ever gets a game, he'll do it. But his cameos have been quite good, Chamberlain, and he's been replicating the Hendo role, which has been really cool. So hopefully it's in 6 weeks' time, it's a turning point for him. Not now, it seems. But the concept of wrapping around a fullback, wrapping around Salah, that can be something that can hurt Manchester United if we're trying to break down one of their presses. Otherwise, we just counter the fuck out of them, Pete.
Well, if the counters don't work, if you want to get the board up, they also pull back into a 4-4-2. Mm-hmm. So when the press, or if they're quite susceptible to counterattacks from their own set pieces, which is what we saw Salah do, by the way, at Anfield, and we saw Everton score the same goal this year. We saw Wolves have 3 or 4 massive chances against them from their own set pieces. So that's something that we're specialists at. We know that we've scored how many goals just off other teams' set pieces. So that's something we can look at. But when that doesn't work and they settle in, if you want to get the board up, Georgie, they pull off into a 4-4-2 completely. And why they do that is, so why they do that is because this bloke here hasn't got the legs to press like the way we do in a 4-3-3. Because in a 4-2-3-1, it's very easy to press with a 3. They don't. They pull back into the 4 because of him. If anything, Ronaldo is actually one of the lowest stats out of all the front players in the Premier League in terms of pressured runs in the whole entire league. So we know we're not going to get a press from him. So what they will do, they'll drop off completely and try and literally limit the space, the ball on Fabinho, Milner, Henderson, and obviously the main man, the smartest man in football, Firmino. So what they'll do, they'll try and condense the spaces completely and just pull off. But this is something that I think can actually work in our favor because of this guy. Find me a better passer of the ball at the back from a centre-back. There isn't one. So that was a trick question. Now, what we need to do here is just a very simple, we've seen it a million times. And I think he does it more so to Mane, which we saw against Bayern Munich. But he's not going to run in. And even if it's a foot race between Salah and Shaw, excellent. Like I said, potato with legs. But even better if it's Maguire. So if we can just have him starting as wide as he always is and just peels underneath and then bang in between there. We've seen Van Dijk. We know what he can do. We know that that's on there. Because if they're going to be rigid in this shape, George, that's fine. Totally fine.
You know who else does that ball? And you're going to, you know what? I want to put maybe a number of the player that's up and you don't look at the screen. And there's one other player that does that ball lovely, perfectly in our side. Who is it? That ball over the top for our...
Fabinho.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Firmino does that. We've seen him do it for Salah many times. He actually, is it not the ball that goes over the top against Brentford? Is it not? Is that from... It may have been from somebody else. I felt like it was from Fabinho over the top for Salah where he doesn't score. He does that bullshit.
But he does against Crystal Palace when he scores against Palace.
Well, then there we go. Maybe that's a better example. Maybe I got that other one wrong. But yeah, so those two players. But the other thing that I'm not sure if I'm ever going to have control. Am I going to have control of your... can I get control of your...
I've sent you the thing.
The one thing that I would want to see is something similar as we start to wrap up here. I want to see something similar as to what we did against Atletico, the idea of moving them side to side, but it's using Van Dijk because in every single game, Pete, whenever we've seen Salah, getting this, getting these one-on-ones with these players and venturing into the box, we're actually seeing it's usually off of Van Dijk. If I've got control here, it's usually off of Van Dijk to here. So the thing that I would want to see is I don't only want to see Van Dijk with time on the ball to play the ball over the top like that. What I would want to see is I would want to see us force, if the ball's over this side to Robertson, I want to see this to be forced, almost as though we're forcing our possession all over to that side like this. And then it's got to be this and that. That's magic. That's the magic for me. This is what has been working. Van Dijk goes to there to, if you pretend Henderson is Elliott, he goes to there to Elliott when Elliott plays that huge, that massive part in that goal. I can't remember who was it, Norwich, or whoever it was, where Elliott played such a great part. Actually, it was the Trent goal, was it not? Who knows?
Yeah, it was Trent when he came back from the middle and it was top finish.
Yeah. So it's that ball to Elliott. It's also this ball to Salah that starts up a few of his runs. It could have even been that ball that started off the Manchester City run. That ball from Van Dijk, especially if they're going to be this stubborn, if we can just work them to one side and pretty much do what we were saying against Atletico, switch them side to side, but instead of switching them, through these passing lanes or even through those passing lanes like that, is the ball moving? Does that look okay? Does it look like the ball?
It looks fine. It follows clearly. Yeah.
Instead of doing that stuff, obviously Van Dijk gets it here. He looks up and he looks for that ball every single time. If it's not on, he'll then play it or he'll play it. But this ball's on all day of the week. And that's when I'd say to Salah, run, mate, run. Either get hacked here in the box or just keep running and score, like against Napoli, for example, where he scored that right foot goal here. Also, we know against Manchester City, he did something very similar. So those are the two. It's something along those lines that I would like to see.
Yeah, but you know what else that does? So let's pretend now it's because the attention is going to be heavily on Salah. We all know that, right? And Luke Shaw's going to be checking his shoulders, we can see here. But if let's say the ball gets to Van Dijk, like you said, right? And everything's all here planned. If Salah kind of does this movement here and goes in front, Shaw thinks, oh, great, job done. And Henderson is in between here and everyone's okay, it's all sorted. What better player to have in this space, by the way, that can receive the ball, from Trent and it's there from Matip. What better player to have on the ball in this moment? Honest to God, in world football right now, there isn't one.
And Pete, can I also say to you as well, Kayed makes a great point there. That's that's we love that triangle, and it's a great point he brings up very quickly as you go on.
I'm just saying it because then once that ball's here, then Mane has to be making there. Then it's Firmino, and then because Salah's in a central position, in he goes. And then obviously maybe a late run from Milner or someone from midfield, but they won't need to because Trent will find whoever's there. And I actually think this is how Firmino scores. I think Firmino scores against United if he hopefully starts. Obviously, he can't score unless he comes on. But
him or Jota can score this type of goal.
I'm telling you, it'll be from a ball from Trent in between these two potatoes. I'm telling you now, it'll be in between his and then Firmino gets on the end of it.
He's a fridge and he's a potato.
That's it.
And going back to that idea, if you just give me very quick control as we start to.
Let me go back. Hold it there. Yep.
This is by the way, these are the two runs that I was talking about, where we're talking about that. Going back to what Kayed said there, that those triangles, it's just Henderson there, and it's Milner there, which way, and it's what you've been talking about, Pete. It's this idea of the breaking runs from midfield. It's this. Does that work? Are they going to give me? They're not going to give me arrows.
You got to click the line. Click the line. You got to click the line first.
Yeah. There we go. It's this, and it's that. We all want our midfielders to be doing that run, obviously, but these two runs is what Henderson and Milner have been doing. So for me, that's also something that might come in handy if those are the two that are playing. If it's not them two, then I don't know if Thiago's available. Probably not. Curtis Jones, we've actually seen him in Milner's position, by the way. Nice few step overs, shot on goal. He can kind of be our Phil Foden in that sense. But those are examples of which our midfielders can not only burst forward for us to have an attacking threat, but also to set up something for someone else. Okay, let's have a think. Score predictions. Now, we were talking about this as we were wrapping up our thoughts before this, because we prepare for this. And I remember one of the things that I said, by the way, was I think United score a goal. I can see it being 3-1 Liverpool with that late goal, basically just stealing the result from last time, where we're 2-1 and United had scored one, and we managed to come out on top, but we're pretty comfortable. And then Salah scores this like counter at the end of the game. Maybe that in the 4-1 realms, dare I say. Just United just score so many crazy goals. I think it's Rashford or Greenwood will get a goal. Cristiano Ronaldo is dangerous, but I think, and by the way, in the comments, tell us what you think is a good prediction. What do you think is going to happen?
Jericho has already.
He has already. What's he said here? So hold on. Kayed said 3-1. Another 1-goal margin game, but we've actually got one here. This is actually quite believable, Pete. 7-0 from Jericho. Break the walls down.
Jericho in every single game, Jericho says 7-0 until he gets
7-0. I'll tell you what, if you got to put $1 every week on 7-0, you'll make a fortune. Kayed's actually going 3-2, 1 goal in it. That's pretty believable as well. Pete, you got a prediction? I mean, do we want to? Tottenham did them 6-0. That is correct. That did happen once. First of all, before I get your predictions, the starting lineup, if we do go back to the screen, that's pretty much what we're thinking. Robertson, Van Dijk, Matip, Arnold, and then we kind of, there we go. Make it bigger for everybody to see. Don't worry about our faces. We don't know about Milner. We don't know what's happening there. We suspect it could happen. Front three maybe stays the same. Firmino's in great form, but Jota, I think it's a great game for Jota, personally. But roughly, this is any other changes that could be made to this starting 11?
For me, not really. I mean, look, Keita, he came off at halftime purely, and look, Klopp tried to protect him after the game. I think, he kind of he did cop the rough end of the stick from everybody, but I just don't think he was the worst one there. Or I think that actually between the three of them were just as bad as each other. So I think you got to give that three a chance again. But then again, you can't, because Firmino has to play. So one has to miss out. And to be honest with you, it's an away match. It's still Liverpool versus United. People got to get this Ollie stuff out their head. It's still Liverpool versus United, regardless who's in coach. Like it's simple as that. It's still the biggest game in football in terms of English football. Forget Liverpool, Manchester City. This is a bigger game. Forget all that crap that all Liverpool versus Man United is one of, if not the biggest match in football. It's as simple as that. So no matter who's in charge, it's always a shit fucking game to watch, and it's the only game I can never get sleep on. Honest to God, like Champions League finals, I can sleep the night before. I'm good. Liverpool versus United, 3 days up to the match, I fucking struggle to sleep. I can't do it. I get anxiety, I shake, I drink. Like, it's just terrible. So I can't give you a prediction, and I'm not going to give you one because
you got to do something.
I'm not giving shit. All I'm saying is that our midfield better fucking start tracking, because if they don't, Fernandes and the others are going to have a field day.
For those, because we've just got some more people coming into the comments, I want to ask you guys this question, you guys watching. I want to ask you this question. Firmino or Jota? I mean, you would say Firmino, wouldn't you, Pete?
All day, every day.
To step on Fred. Fred likes to come in between the centre-backs. We saw against Leicester that they were absolute 6s and 7s at the back. Without Varane's ball-playing ability, I mean, all of them are very capable of losing the ball high up if we can press them high enough. And Liverpool's press has obviously been pretty good this season. We've just had some issues with, I think, the shape. Bobby all day from Steve. G'day, Steve, from the Red Sea down under. The one thing that we've noticed is that maybe there's a bit of a gap between the defensive line and the midfield line. Because they're higher up, that may mean that we're attacking more. But it means that we are kind of conceding more goals, it seems. In terms of, people playing up front, we've got a mixture there. Jota, Bobby again for this one. Then I want to ask the question. I think
Maguire is so dumb and so clumsy. I think Firmino is the guy that is like... He's like a magician. It's like, where do you go? He's the kind of guy that, Maguire, you do that thumb thing and Maguire believes it. That's Firmino. Yeah. Firmino's that thumb trick. So I think that he can cause all sorts.
Well, going from what I was saying before about this idea of the midfield, and they're not sitting close enough to our defense. I'm trying to explain that phenomenon of why we're having those pockets influence us so much. Me and you were talking off air about this. We think that the defensive line is fine. It's just the midfielders aren't close enough to them. But because they're pressing higher up, maybe that's why we're seeing us score a little bit more. We're the highest scorers in the Premier League. We could be one of the top scorers in Europe. I'm not sure at this point. Probably are, actually. I wouldn't be surprised.
I think it's between us and Munich right now.
Yeah, but
up to,
having said that, that midfield seems to be doing what it did again when we're at our pomp, which is not necessarily providing goals and assists. They're just letting the front three do their thing again. I have a feeling Klopp may have rewound time a little bit, and I think the midfield three are now doing the running for the front three. The problem is they're not doing the running for the back three, for the back four. And so it's just this adjustment period. I think Klopp's turning the dials on both of those to find the right mixture. But this is a question I want to ask everybody: Milner or Keita or Ox? Because we know it's going to be Henderson and Fabinho. So can we get maybe some answers from some people? We've got a lot of people, actually, the most that have been watching live with us. What do you guys think in terms of a midfield? Keeping in mind that this is the midfield that we're choosing: Milner, Fabinho, Henderson. That's what we think is going to happen. Pete, is there something that you want over this? Would you want Keita instead of Milner?
what I'd want is a Curtis Jones appearance if he's fit, because if the game is tight, if the game is edgy, if it looks like we need something a little bit extra, a bit of flair, I think Curtis Jones is the one. As simple as that. I think in terms of the ones that you just highlighted, I would love to see Milner start the match. Give us his all for 60 and then throw on Naby with 30 to go and kind of say, like, take the chains off him a little bit and watch him completely express himself, potentially, depending on the results, depending if we're chasing or not. But I'd look, if I had to pick Keita or Milner right now to start the match away, Old Trafford, I'd take Milner.
And no space for Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Yeah, in the reserves. He'll start there if he wants. He could be captain there.
And do we know Thiago's ruled out? I mean, he would start if he was available, but I think it's probably Klopp hates putting in a player back from injury into a big game. Hates it.
Look, I think our biggest problem on this show is that we do it on purpose a few days before the match, so we don't get the goss light right before the match. We don't get the team news. We kind of go in a bit early and say we're putting our balls on the line here. This is what we think is going to happen. So I hope Thiago's fit because we missed him against Atletico.
Yeah. Just someone to control. Well, I'll go for, as we were kind of wrapping up there for score predictions, I will stick with my 3-1. I think United will score. I think it'll be Greenwood or Rashford. Ronaldo's going to be a handful, but I hope that it is Virgil van Dijk and Joel Matip are the defensive pairing that do ultimately thwart him in the air. We just have to be careful of him, on his feet, because he's also very good at doing that. We've got this other prediction here from Kayed, Fabinho, Hendo, and then player X, pretty much what we've been saying. And we don't know who that player X is. We've been going for Milner. But yeah, agree. I'm not sure who Joama is talking about here. Perhaps, is that Milner, by the way? I'm not sure.
I think he's talking about Thiago.
Could be Thiago, yeah.
Help us out, Joama. Help us out.
Help us out who you're talking about. But the last thing I wanted to say why I enjoy Milner, and I can't really you've banned me from control, but it doesn't matter. If you can just show us Fabinho, Henderson on your thing.
Hey, Thiago,
Fabinho,
by
Henderson,
the way.
That is Thiago. So that's talking
Yeah.
about Thiago. Yeah, he pushes the team up the field just simply with his possession. But the last thing I want to say about why I like Milner, if you just bring Fabinho and Henderson together as a 2 and then do a 4-2-3-1 with Milner at the top, and then actually put Milner next to Firmino, this is kind of what we see happening. And that's where he was for the goal, for Salah's goal, by the way. Milner's in the box. He's always in the box for these things. So that's one reason why I do like Milner. And that's why I think Elliott was doing so well for us before. And this is also the space where Curtis Jones was operating. So if it's not Milner, I think the closest thing we have to this player, a cam, a forward-thinking, winger-thinking, let me go around and find space thinking midfielder. If it's not Milner, it's probably going to be Curtis Jones. Anyway, guys, it's been really, really great chatting to you. Thank you for everybody who's been joining us here live on the stream. This has been the training ground, by the way. Give it a like, push it up the algorithm. We do a lot of work for these shows, and we love giving you guys predictions, and we love getting your predictions, by the way. So please feel free. I actually saw Kayed there. Is it? Have I got his now? Yeah, Kayed actually made a prediction of last week, right at the beginning. I want to see if I can find it because he said, here we go. He said, I remember Griezmann might have the odd good game against us in the last stream. Give me a cookie, and thank God for the red cards. Good on you, mate. You're part of the training ground in that sense. You're an honorary member of the training ground. Welcome to
our
the team.
analysis was so good that it helped his judgment on the game. See that?
If you watch the show, you'll know what's going to happen in the show, regardless of whether you take our advice or not. You're just going to know. It's just going to be like that. But yeah, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please make sure to like the show, and then keep up to date. Go on the YouTube channel to see what's scheduled for the future, so you can keep up to date on what the other lads are saying over in the UK or the other lads on the Red Sea Down Under. Anyway, it's going to be a tough game against Manchester United. Pete is saying he doesn't want to give a result. I'm saying we're going to win. All of us are saying we're going to win, hopefully. And hopefully it's just another one of those Ollie spinning out of control at the wheel. And hopefully he stays on the wheel for a little bit longer so Manchester United can continue to be as weird as possible. But thanks very much, guys. And we'll see you again next time.